Good afternoon on what is a surprisingly warm but grey and cloudy day. It is Thursday, the 18th of September, and I'm in the reading nook with a nice hot cup of tea. And package to continue unboxing. I think I'll probably finish unboxing this because I have already pulled out a copy of The Knives by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. And this is Nemesis the Warlock, Volume 3. It's a definitive edition from 2000 AD, from the pages of 2000 AD and the mid-1980s to sort of like the early 1990s. This is content written by Pat Mills, drawn by Brian Talbot, Kevin O'Neill and Tony Luke. And it's one of the, it's collects the original run of the stories for the signature, one of the signature characters from the pages of 2000 AD, Nemesis the Warlock and his enemy Torquemada. Basically, you know, a story of resistance against the Inquisition and xenophobic drives of Torquemada and his empire. Done in an overly high gothic steampunk science fiction fashion. So all will end in a sea of fire and blood. Long regarded as one of the crown jewel epics of the pages of 2000 AD, at long last Nemesis the Warlock is back in print and better than ever in a brand new series of definitive editions. The definitive series of the Nemesis the Warlock saga continues with Nemesis' battle against the wicked forces of Termite's mad tyrant Torquemada. Alien freedom fighter Nemesis the Warlock is joined by his bloodthirsty son Thoth and war robots, the ABC Warriors. So you've got a crossover with early characters for a nightmarish adventure across the terrifying time wastes. Written by Pat Mills, author of martial law and a lot of other content besides, and drawn by the late Kevin O'Neill, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and Brian Talbot, responsible for drawing Sandman and writing and drawing the superlative Adventures of Luther Outright. This edition compiles the entire series in order with a colour centre page credits reproduced in their original form. Definitive Nemesis the Warlock is the ultimate way to enjoy and read one of the most important sci-fi sagas published in the pages of 2000 AD. So, I've already done an unboxing of the first couple of volumes. Now, of course, this has been reprinted probably a couple of times, maybe three, I don't know, in the years since it was originally published in the pages of 2000 AD. But with this edition, they've kind of gone back to the original content, relayed it out, made it produced it in a much larger format, and put the color plate back in. So this kind of has sort of like, go back to, this is an area where the pages of 2000 AD weren't produced on slick paper. They were produced on sort of like newspaper, thick newspaper style paper. So not quite as colourful, not necessarily quite as slick, not as slick as you get today, but as you'll see, really still quite sharp, fantastic artwork. You know, these days people look at the artwork, we're getting comics and are amazed by it, but the long period essentially throughout sort of like the 60s and 70s and, you know, into the 80s, where artists were drawing in black and white and producing fantastic stuff. You know, the line art and the use of shadow and so on really brought these stories to life. And Nemesis the Warlock is no exception. So you've got the credits page and the frontispiece, and then the contents, and you've got a classic kind of piece there. I think that is actually Brian Talbot, sort of like, and all his weirdness. Yeah, and we were straight into, you know, basically. So this is from 14th of September to 23rd of November, 1985. And this is Brian Talbot, kind of his commercial peak, I suppose. You know, and his style, if you know it, if you've seen it for the pages of Luther Arkwright, you will recognise it over and over. I mean, that character there, Octobriana from the Adventures of Luther Arkwright. You know, fierce Mongolian warrior Amazon. But again, redrawn for this comic. I mean, it's not Dr. Brianna, but it damn well looks like her. And the style is, you know, heavily steampunk, gothic, kind of horror, and it's absolutely fantastic. And we have, this is from 5th of October, so we have Nemesis the Warlock on the front cover. You know, and you would see this on the shelves of your local comic book you know, newsagents, and there was nothing like anything else. You know, at this point, you know, all the comics were still sort of like war and action and stuff. You know, 2000 AD kind of dominated that kind of comic book space for English boys and girls of a certain age. So yeah, I mean, me personally, I'm more of a fan of the Adventures of Luther Arkwright than I am Nemesis the Warlock. So this is kind of like reading a very dark and twisted version of the Adventures of Luther Arkwright, but it's nothing like it. Nothing like it. So this actually isn't my copy. I'm actually opening a copy intended for someone else, because that's the other thing, is that the previous 2 volumes are also for someone else, for my sister-in-law, because she's a big fan of 2000 AD, Nemesis the Warlock in particular, along with Slain. And, you know, she's got a lot of these issues sort of like in boxes somewhere. So with this, she will have the sort of like the kind of complete run in larger, easier to read format at her fingertips, as it were. So, you know, and that's sort of just going to be thank you very much, because we are going away for the weekend and we need someone to cat sit. But that's what you get when you have 4 cats inside. And well, 3 at the moment outside who regularly visit us for food, one of which is definitely living in our shed, and he's ours. And that's Herc, and you'll have seen him perhaps wandering around trying to work out why I'm sat here. So so here we've got the actual arrival of the ABC Warriors. Again, creations of Pat Mills and Kevin, drawn by Kevin O'Neill originally. Here, you've actually got a return here with the arrival of the ABC Warriors. So it switches over to Kevin O'Neill. Very much a very much a bit of a lighter style, I would suggest, in comparison to the section drawn by Brian Talbot. So much more dynamic in its kind of art and direction and its sense of movement. But I think that's sort of like partly because of the storytelling, the involvement of sort of like the robots. And we've got a bit of change here. We do have sort of like you get a bit of an internal reflection by Torquemada, and this is actually written rather than drawn, so a little bit of a change of pace for the reader there. And even what's ridiculous is here is you actually switch to what looks to be it's like a mini solo adventure there, because the paragraphs are sort of numbered. So it gets a bit weird. Including porcine nuns. And even the fact that, you know, the emphasis is basically rolling dice there. We've got a double spread there. So yes, of course, this is the time when remember that these comics came out, and you'd have the front the front cover would be color, back cover would be color as well, as I seem to recall, and then you'd have a color center spread, like this. So this is the first one that Torquemada in this series gets. It would have had some earlier. And in some ways, it's not like some of these images are really kind of horrific, but brilliant. So yes. That would have been absolutely thrilling, you know, for your young lad, you know, or lass, I say, girl or boy or teenager, etc., reading these and just being wowed by the imagery. And this also comes along at the time when you have the rise of, I suppose, of this really kind of fits in sort of like into the genre of the grimdark genre, I suppose. And with that, elsewhere you've got the rise of the grimdark in gaming as well, with the content coming out at Games Workshop at the time, so 85, 86, with Warhammer Fantasy Battle, inspired, of course, in part by the writing of Michael Moorcock, and also of I think that would have inspired it would have been the 30 Years War for Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and then you've got Warhammer 40,000 as well, and this can be sort of, you know, seen as sort of not being dissimilar in its kind of style and look. You could certainly imagine both Kevin O'Neill and Brian Talbot sort of drawing stories set in the world of Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer Fantasy Battles, if they were being, you know, sort of hired to a Games Workshop, wanted to have kind of that comic penetration, in basically the penetration into the comic book market at that time. Don't think anyone would have ever thought about it. There are plenty of comic books set within that million now. I mean, I say plenty, there are a few. Lots of novels there. So yeah, I mean, lots of fantastic art, but you've got and a great story, really dynamic, and this is a very good collection. I mean, the only thing you would kind of go, it would have been nice to have seen this, had this in hardback, you know. And yes, they did really, I think they did a limited release hardback as well. But I mean, you know, basically you had to order that on the website, and hey, who forgot to do that? We've got some kind of styles here that go back. This is Brian Tobler again, that echo sort of like Adventures of Luther Arkwright. And then sort of like, you know, you've got nice. I really like the inclusion. They've got an advert for upcoming stories for Nemesis the Warlock. That's a great addition. And we're back to, this is going to be Kevin O'Neill's artwork. And then you've got sort of fully painted pieces as well. And here we've got the catchphrase for Torquemada always was be pure, be vigilant, behave. And here we've got an alternative here, which is never forget, never forgive, never for fun. Other thing to bear in mind is that these are, as with a lot of the content that was being written in, certainly quite a lot of the content written in 2000 AD during this period is very anti-authoritarian. Even Judge Dredd is anti-authoritarian. It's a satire upon authority. Not everyone necessarily grabs that, gets that, but you know, it is. And here we've got the ultimate, you know, basically rebel against conformity, and we've got quite different styling, changing so artwork here. Yeah, so basically rebel against conformity and orthodoxy, and so it does kind of feel, sad to say, pertinent today. And here basically almost I've got a photo kind of style look to this, which is kind of jarring, I suppose, with all of the great artwork that's come along beforehand, but nevertheless, we end on a blaze of vibrant, bright colour. And then we have the biographies, essentially, of biographical blurbs for various authors, artists, and so on. So yeah, that is Nemesis the Warlock Volume 3, definitive collection. Absolutely recommend you go and buy this. If you're a fan of classic science fiction, weird science fiction, comics from the 80s, great stories, really great artwork. And it's got a political message as well, whether you like it or not. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you did, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a package containing a book, role-playing book, supplement, or scenario, or in this case, the third collected volume of an ongoing series from the 1980s, from the pages of 2000 AD, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching. I'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.